Greetings gamers, my name is Santo and I'm very excited to bring back one of the most requested video series here on the channel, and that is the Campaign Diaries series. This is something I've done a couple of times in the past and the people that have watched it have always really enjoyed it, but it's never played super well with the algorithm. So we're trying a new approach after this first public video where I introduce you to the world and the characters and where we are up until this point. All the future Campaign Diaries are going to be exclusive for channel members as a reward for them. So if you're interested in seeing how I run my game week to week and the sort of common problems I run into and how I solve them and the nitty-gritty of running a long-term campaign in my style, consider signing up to be a channel member down below. That'll give you all the information you need. But without further ado, let's dive into this. This video is sponsored by Legend Keeper, the world building platform. More on them later. So the campaign that I'm currently running has been going on now for well over a year. We're like 60 something sessions in, and it takes place in the dual cities of Talavaar. This is a region that was first developed through live streams on Twitch and here on the channel back in 2022. And if you've been watching the channel for a while, you will have seen this region of my world and its hundreds of location pins. And the approach that I took for this particular campaign, because my players had said they wanted a sandbox game, I started by doing a lot of front-loaded work. So I did a lot of prep work before the campaign ever started, and then week to week, my session prep is much lighter than it otherwise would be because of that. So we went and we planned out hundreds of locations and points of interest and potential plot points and plot hooks and monsters and monster lairs and all of those kind of things all across the map. So that, like I said, there's currently more than 600 points of interest on this map. So in any given week, when a player says, here's where I want to go this week, there's already going to be a pin there. I already know what exists on the map. It vastly reduces my overhead, my mental overhead as a GM, and the amount of prep that I need to do. While I was building the dual cities, I was very intentionally thinking this is a setting that I want to run multiple campaigns in. This is something that I want to build with enough width and enough depth that I can run multiple groups through this setting if I wanted to, or I could run the same group through multiple regions in the same area of the dual cities across multiple campaigns, and there'd be enough there for them to sink their teeth into. The dual cities itself is a resource-rich region of the continent of Talavaar. It is on the eastern coast of that continent. It's the coastline and then the island of Ore, and it's famed for having a really high density of precious gems and precious metals and a lot of really valuable items, which is why it got dubbed the Dual Cities. Now, our player characters are members of a free company. Free companies are mercenary groups that have a long history throughout Talavaar. Most of them have been wiped out by this empire, the Dusk Empire, and the subjugation that happened over the course of a few hundred years in the recent past. But there are still a few free companies, and our players are members of a emerging free company called the Order of the Argent Shroud. When we first started playing, there was sort of a dozen members in the company, and now there's fewer than 100, but the company has been growing thanks in large part to the actions of the player characters. The great thing about using a free company as the basis for this sandbox style campaign is it gives us the flexibility for the players to be like, right, here's where we want to go and what we want to do this week. But in a week where they don't know what they want to do, or they feel stuck or directionless, I can come to them and say, right, okay, you've got a mission from the free company this week. You've been given orders from on high. Here is what you have to do. So most of the time the campaign is driven by their wants and desires, their interests and intrigue. But when they are struggling with that, I can step in and be like, okay, here's a mission from the leader of the free company, or there's some free company business in this area of the world that you need to take care of. And it gives us the best of both worlds in terms of how they receive quest lines. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit the like button because it really does help me out. And if you want more videos where I talk about my world building approach or how I run my games, hit the subscribe button to get more videos just like this. So speaking of characters, let's introduce our current party. These are not the characters that we started the campaign with, as I have talked about in this video, talking about player character deaths. We have had a number of character deaths and kind of moving ons in this campaign, as we do in all of my campaigns. I run a pretty lethal campaign. I don't tend to hold my punches, especially when it comes to boss fights, so we do tend to have quite a high death rate. Again, the free company is perfect for this because it means when a player character dies, we've got the perfect way to introduce a new member. They're just another member of the free company. They've either been a member the whole time or they've recently joined the free company, and they can kind of slot in as a, oh, we've been ordered to come on this mission with you, and it makes introducing new characters much easier. So kicking things off, we have Angus, the Minotaur Barbarian. Angus grew up as a farmer in the realm of Eildal. He worked the fields and grew hops and barley and brewed his own beer and started the Little Ox Brewery. But he was driven from his farm by a rival farmer who was jealous of his success and who stole his land and who sold Angus to a traveling circus that is run by a beholder. So Angus's mission, in addition to traveling around with the free company, is to return to his homestead, reclaim his brewery and its fields, and to also deal with the rival farmer that drove him out, and the beholder, leader of the circus that has been taking in all of these disparate people from across the dual cities and forcing them to perform. Next, we have Cornelius Montgomery, the third son of an Eildalian baron and illusionist wizard. Cornelius is out in the world questing to prove himself as more than just the third son of a wealthy noble. He wants to prove himself as a man in his own right and to kind of earn the name of his family. He studied magic in the city of Topaz up in Eildal, and a lot of his driving force is going to be that comparison of the man he was when he left versus who he is now when he finally returns home. Next up, we have the kobold rogue Diddy. Diddy is just filled with wanderlust and wants to explore the world and find as much shiny stuff to steal as possible. His parents were killed by a previous player character played by the same player, and that's a really nice connection point that I think is quite funny, and we've yet to explore it, but when it comes up, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. Then we have Russell Crowe, the Kenku trickster cleric. He worships the god Clavo, the handsome god of tricks, and he's on a sort of holy pilgrimage to become closer to his god. At this point, he's already done several tasks for Clavo, proven his loyalty and proven himself to the trickster god. He's won several boons from the trickster god, including a magical horn that summons like little mini versions of Clavo the trickster who will come and aid them in battle sort of once a week, which has been really fun because they turn up and they all look like the village people. They're sort of the handsome god dressed in cosplay that get in the mix, and that's always really fun to explore. And Russell is just a complete devout follower of Clavo. Anytime they're in combat, he's like, I'm invincible, Clavo will protect me. And that blind devotion to this god is a really interesting aspect within this party dynamic. He's the only one that is really religious. Angus has taken up worship of Clavo in a sort of fair weather way, but it's only really Russell that is a true believer in the gods. All of the others really couldn't care less about the gods, even though they've met gods at this point. They've met Clavo. So Russell's always making decisions based on how it would be perceived by Clavo, whether it would please Clavo, or whether he thinks he would earn Clavo's favor. And finally, we have Devani. She is an Akmiri clockwork sorcerer. Now, the Akmiri are a specific race to my world of Ishtar. They were a great empire 1,000 years ago. They were the height of magic and technology. They ruled the world basically from on high. They had sky cities. They were literally like above everyone else. But a great cataclysm destroyed all their cities, basically wiped their entire people out in the blink of an eye. So only a handful of Akmiri still live, and all those that do not have their original bodies. All of their original bodies were destroyed, and the Akmiri survive now either as beings of pure energy that kind of puppet suits of armor and things, or in Devani's case, she latched onto a Sunat stone, which is a kind of magical focusing crystal in my world. She latched onto a Sunat stone that was inside a construct body, so mechanically she's a warforged, and she's the clockwork soul sorcerer. She spent pretty much the entire 1,000 years since the cataclysm until now, like offline and asleep or unconscious, and has woken up to a very, very different world to the one that she lived in when she went to sleep. This means that anytime the players interact with a new element, Devani always has that point of reference of, is this something that I was familiar with in the time of the Akmiri Empire, or is this something that has come to light since the cataclysm 1,000 years ago? And that's been really useful to help the players contextualize how new things are in the world or how serious something is. So recently, they were fighting against a bunch of nightmare creatures, and before they started the fight, when they were hearing the rumours about them, Divani's player said,
"Have I heard about this? Is this something that people were superstitious about 1,000 years ago?"
And saying, yes, this is something that people were superstitious about and very concerned about 1,000 years ago, sends a clear message that this is probably a real superstition and not just a fake thing, and that it's a really serious thing because it has kind of prevailed through 1,000 years, and it immediately got the players paying much more attention to what was going on and taking the whole situation much more seriously, because they're like, oh, this nightmare thing has been going on for 1,000 years plus. Maybe it's not just this isolated village being superstitious, maybe we really do need to be paying attention here. So Divani's main motivation is learning more about what happened to her people and the Akhmiri cataclysm, what caused it, and what's been going on for the last 1,000 years. Where are her people now, and what can she do to kind of rebuild some of that Akhmiri powerhouse that existed before she went to sleep. I do a lot of world building here on the channel, which is why I'm so pleased that today's video is sponsored by Legend Keeper. For years now, Legend Keeper has been my go-to world building tool. It's what I've used to build out my homebrew world, and I've been using it to run my weekly campaign for the last 4 years, keeping all of my session notes, my player notes, and my world notes within Legend Keeper. The thing that I love most about Legend Keeper is that it just gets out of my way and lets me world build. There are no predetermined templates. It doesn't give me 1,000 prompts every time I want to do something. I can just create a new page and dive right into the act of creation. When I do want some structure though, there's a template system that allows me to set any page I've made as a template so I can use it over and over again. The main draw of Legend Keeper for me though is the atlas. Here you can upload a map and cover it in pins, which are linked to articles containing details about your world. You can change the color, the shape, the size of the pins to make finding information easier, especially when you have over 600 of them on a single map like I do. And not just that, but you can nest maps infinitely. You can have a map of your entire cosmos with a pin to your world, go down to the world level map, and then to your campaign region, and then zoom into the area the players are exploring, and then open up the map to their starting town, and then even open up a map of the local tavern. Legend Keeper also has boards, which are like interactive whiteboards where you can plot ideas or story beats, or even make a digital GM screen with clickable elements containing all the information that you need. When it comes time to share your world, you can invite your players to edit the world as collaborators, or just send them a link for them to view the public elements of the world like a wiki with no account needed. If you want to check out everything Legend Keeper has to offer, you can use my link in the description below and get a 14-day free trial. And then when you're ready, use my code Icarus Diary for 20% off your first purchase. Thanks again to Legend Keeper for supporting the channel, but for now, back to the video. So I want to end today by talking a little bit about where our players are, what our current campaign arc is, and where I expect them to be going over the next couple of weeks and months. So our heroes are in the nation of Eildal. Eildal is on the island of Or. It is one of the wealthiest nations in all of the Jewel cities, and it's built around the core concept of that sort of Western European medieval chivalric ideal. So a lot of classic tropes of medieval fantasy, a lot of knights in shining armor, a lot of sword and sorcery elements to it. But there is a dark, seedy underbelly to the nation of Eildal. There is a corruption, a demonic corruption at the heart of the nation. The city of Mornburg, which is one of the southernmost cities and where our players arrived in this nation, is rife with demonic corruption. It has a long sordid history of demonic uprising and quashing these rebellions, and there are small little sects of demon cult worshippers kind of breaking out there even now. And when the players first arrived, as they were attending a masquerade ball trying to heist a magical item for themselves, they inadvertently stumbled into one of these attacks and witnessed as a bunch of demonic chaos cultists were attacking the Viscount and all of the attendees of the ball, and they had to get involved in that to protect themselves and protect a couple of the people that they'd met in the city who they thought,
yeah, these people are pretty cool, I suppose we'll protect them.
As they left the city and headed north, they ended up in the Forest of Spikes. Now this is a location steeped in folklore. They say that as you travel through the Forest of Spikes, to ward off the evil spirits and to keep the evil that is in the forest maintained, you have to drive a spike into the trees. So as you're traveling through this forest, you can see all the trees are absolutely covered in iron spikes. All of this is an elaborate ruse.
This is a ruse.
And basically a giant cover-up. So the iron spikes form a kind of perception filter that stops detection magic from really working properly. So the players are moving through the forest and they try and do some magical detection and realize that this blanket of iron spikes on all of the trees is doing really funny things with the wizard's ability to kind of perceive magically and detect magic through the trees, because there's so many kind of pieces of iron interweaving through his vision. And the reason that they do that is to keep hidden a location that is hiding a big secret, that there is a demon being held within the forest. The demon is Mendax the Defiler, a greed and corruption demon who has been pinned in place into a tree by the Silver Lance, the kind of holy icon of the Silver Lancers, one of the biggest free companies in all of the land. This isn't public knowledge. As far as the public know, the Silver Lancers still have their lance. They carry around a replica of it, no one knowing that the real one is pinning this great demon to a tree in the middle of the forest. Now the players stumble upon this location and hear someone crying out for help. They run in and they see the demon glamored as a captain of the Silver Lancers, and they free him. They take the lance out, they have a bit of a conversation, they realize that this guy actually isn't a Silver Lancers captain, and realize that this is Mendax, and combat begins, but they get very, very lucky on their first turn, and the wizard managed to banish the demon. The very next turn, a whole bunch of demon reinforcements arrive, including a Canoloth, which has got this kind of anti-banishment, anti-teleportation kind of null zone ability, which had it arrived before the banishment wouldn't have taken. So they really only had that first turn to get the banishment off. They got incredibly lucky, banished the biggest threat of the fight, so really just had to fight the lesser demons involved, which they did. Happy days. They got the Silver Lance, which they are now currently carrying around. I'm sure that's not going to come up and be a problem the next time they run into some Silver Lancers and have their holy icon strapped to their back. No. So our characters are currently heading north into Ealdal, and they want to go and deal with the personal stories of Angus and Cornelius. So Cornelius wants to return home, visit family, and also wants to return to the city of Topaz, to the college where he studied magic, because they've got a magical artifact that he wants to take to the college and give them possession of. He has a book of spells that was written by one of the horsemen of the apocalypse, and it basically generates random sort of wild magic-y spells every day. And it's a really cool item, but it has wild magic-y elements to it. So sometimes you get good spells, sometimes you get bad spells, and one of these spells has resulted in a previous player character dying. So they've decided we need to give this book to people that are more responsible than us, because we can't be trusted, clearly. And then also they are heading north so that Angus can reclaim his homeland, kill the guy that kicked him out of his homeland, and also find the beholder that is running this circus and dismantle the circus and set all of these people that are prisoners in this circus free. Our current adventure takes place during the Long Night, which is a holiday observed where people believe the veil between the material realm and the realm of nightmares, the abyss, Verundus, the realm of demons, is thinnest. And it's said that to sleep on the Long Night is bad luck and invites horrible, aberrant monsters to kind of slither into the material realm and eat your dreams.
Can't sleep. Clown will eat me.
So the players who haven't rested in like 2 real world months because of the way that the holiday periods fell, learn about this and are like,
yeah, we can just keep going. We will sleep after the 24 hours.
Rather than sleeping immediately before and arrive at rested, they decide to just power through. So they go into the Long Night half baked with all of their abilities. The barbarians only got 1 thing of rage left. The wizard's down a bunch of spell slots. The sorcerer has to start burning resources to get their spell slots back. And over the course of the Long Night, we're about 5 hours into it now, they've already fought a bunch of the sleep monsters, the dream reavers, these slick, oily, worm-like creatures with great maws and thousands of eyes inside them that eat your dreams and then can project your dreams as physical manifestations that will attack you. So they've already fought a bunch of these things, used a bunch more of their resources. Then they also realize that the local coal mine has basically unleashed a Balrog. So this was planned to have been happening anyway, so this was noted on the map anyway. You know, the aspect of fire was going to be here, and they've stumbled into it, and they just happened to have stumbled into it on the worst day that they possibly could. So where we are now is they're currently in the middle of a combat with a ton of fire elementals. They've got an aspect of fire, they've got salamanders, full fire elementals, smaller kind of alternate fire elementals, and they've almost got nothing in the tank. The Barbarian Angus has one rage that he's in. He's got like 40 seconds left of it. The Sorcerer Devani's got no sorcery points left, I believe. We're running very low on spell slots for both Wrestle and for Cornelius, and Diddy the Rogue has used all of his daily use abilities. He's only got regular attacks and sneak attack left. So they're looking at this horde of fire elementals and like, maybe we should run. And it's kind of in that limbo where they haven't decided whether or not they should flee yet, but they're sorely considering it. So you never know, the next time we do one of these, I might be introducing a brand new party of adventurers from the Order of the Argent Shroud, because these 5 might have died. And that is just part of the fun of running open world sandbox, like slightly more old school style play where if they wander into stuff that's too big for them and they don't run, they're gonna die. But if you enjoyed this introduction and you do want to keep up to date with all of the going-ons in my campaign, the best way to do that is sign up to join the YouTube memberships down below. Anytime that there is notable things going on in my campaign, I'll be making campaign diaries and sharing them there. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to keep watching, check out this video where I talk about some of my favorite one-shots that I've ever run. And until next time, happy gaming.